In this tutorial, we're going to talk about the Actions panel, and the Actions panel can be found under Window, Actions. So what the Actions panel does is it allows us to apply changes to a number of images. So let's say we have like 200 images, for example, or 20 images, just a big number of images. And we want to apply the same effect to the image, like cropping, applying a filter, adding contrast, and so forth. It will be really a waste of time if we want to do the same thing, the same steps 200 times if we have 200 images, for example. So what the Actions panel does is it allows us to record our steps, and then all we have to do is open the new image and then hit the play button so that the recorded steps apply on the new image. So let me show you here. I have this image of Rafael Nadal, tennis player, and this is another one, and this is a third one. So what I want to do is make changes to this picture and then record them, obviously, in the Actions panel, and then apply them on these other two images without repeating my steps. So the first thing I want to do is create a new action, and I can do that by going to the top right corner of the Actions panel and clicking on that, and then selecting New Action. Okay, and I will call this Rafael Nadal, and then it gets created in the Actions panel. Now notice that once we created this new action, the record button got activated. You see this red button? It means that anything I do as of now, it's going to get recorded for me under the Rafael Nadal action. So the first thing I want to do is duplicate this layer, and when I duplicate it, notice how that step is added or recorded under Rafael Nadal. So take this layer and duplicate it, and you see that it says duplicate current layer. So any change I make, that change is going to be added under the Rafael Nadal action. Okay, so that's one thing I did. The next thing is adding some brightness and contrast. Actually, I want to add some contrast right here and make it a bit brighter. Okay, and these got recorded too, so brightness and contrast. Then I can maybe add some vibrance right here. So add some vibrance and some saturation, but not too much. We don't want it to look like too colorful. And then add a filter maybe. So go to Filter, Filter Gallery, and choose, you know, an effect that you like. I'll choose Rough Pastels, and then hit OK, and so forth. So you can make as many changes as you need, and they all get recorded under the Rafael Nadal action. Now, what else do I want to do? I want to save this work as a PSD because I don't want to merge these two layers. If I save it as a JPEG, these two layers will become one. So let's go ahead and save it as a PSD file, save as, and I have my original images here in an Actions folder. I will basically call this nadal3.pst because I happen to have nadal3.jpg open. Okay, so I'm saving this as a PSD. Obviously you have to have Photoshop selected in the format to preserve the layers. Hit save and OK, and that's basically all I want to do. Now before I stop the recording, I also want to do one last thing, which is closing this file, because I opened it, I made my changes, I saved it as a PSD file to preserve my layers, and now I want to close it. So File, Close, and now I want to stop my action, which means now is the time when I want the recording to stop. Okay, so I'm hitting the stop button, and that's where the Rafael Nadal action stops after I closed. Obviously, you are free to stop your recording at any step. You don't have to wait until the closing, but for the purpose of this exercise, I wanted to save it and close it, and after having closed it, stop the recording. Okay, so now what do I do now with these two images? That's the great thing about the Actions panel. I don't need to do the same steps. I don't need to duplicate the layer, add brightness and contrast, change the vibrance, apply a filter, save and close. I don't need to waste time doing the same thing. All I need to do is be on the new file, click on the action called Rafael Nadal, and then just hit the play button, and notice how fast this happens. So what is going to happen right now when I click the play button, Photoshop is going to go through these steps and apply them extremely quickly, and then it's going to close the file because that's the last thing. So it's going to duplicate the layer, apply brightness and contrast, apply vibrance, add the rough pastels filter, save the file as a PSD, and then close it. So let me hit the play button, and that's it. You don't even have time to notice, you don't even have time to see what happened. It does everything it has to do in a split of a second and closes the file for you. Let's do the same with this picture. Hit the play button, and that's it. So let's see now if indeed this worked. If it did, we are supposed to find 2 more PSD files in that folder of mine, and when we open them, we have to see all the actions applied. So let me go to my folder, and let me open Nadal1.psd and Nadal2.psd and open them. So the first thing guaranteed is that indeed they got created as PSD files, which is what I had in my actions. And the filters and all the changes I made also got applied. So this is basically the Nadal2.psd, where you see the rough pastels applied, the brightness contrast. This is Nadal1.psd. So all the effects that I did got applied in a split of a second just by using the Actions panel. So remember this. It's good to know the Actions panel, especially when you have many files where you want to apply the same effects. Instead of wasting time doing the same work over again, you just save an action and then hit the play button to apply it on all other files.